What if Lionel Richie's biggest hits were the soundtrack to a serial killer's spree? My name is Please Cake, and the Lionel Richie killer is dead, but only sort of. So let's get into that, shall we? Yeah. I had a very long phone meeting with a lot of people on it. So for the past month, just over a month, I think. No, maybe just, anyway, something like that. Been dealing with a relatively small team trying to get a TV show kind of greenlit into the writing stage. And the initial concept was to turn a movie script that I'd written, The Lionel Richie Killer, into a 10-part TV show. Going back and forth, I was kind of banging my head against the wall because I couldn't really work out how to turn the story into a much longer, more compelling mystery story, if you like. The basic concept was fine, but it, in my mind, and in the producer, who's the main person I've been working with, in their mind as well, it worked better as it was, a 19-minute very campy, very B-movie, very bloody horror flick. And trying to turn it into anything else did seem a little bit disingenuous, honestly. But I didn't want to give up on it because, you know, I want to get something out there, get to a payday and all that kind of good stuff. So really, we just started throwing ideas around of what it could be, who the characters could be, what the kind of future for this project could end up being. And at some point, I made a joke about, I actually can't remember what the joke was now. It's been so long ago, but we've ended up going down a completely different road. And in many ways, it's a much better road, I think. I think the potential of this series, we don't know what we're going to call it. It's called Project LRK, just to kind of hint back to its kind of origins, but it's got nothing to do with Lionel Richie Killer anymore. It's still a mystery, but other than that, yeah, like really none of the initial impetus for this project is remaining on board. And yeah, like part of me, as I said, part of that is good. I think there's a lot more potential in this project now, but part of it is also bad, you know, because I was going to do A, we're now going to do C. It feels kind of weird. It's a little bit of whiplash on my part, but like I said, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a much better project. Called Project LRK. And to put it simply, it is now a fantasy detective show, which is something I've actually pitched before, and I seem to have come back round to it. But the timing on this seems to be pretty much perfect for the people who were involved on the call. So, like I say, normally, I think the highest number I've had on a call so far, but before this time, was around 10, maybe 20. I honestly can't remember. I think it was less than 20. Today, when the call started for the first hour, there was about 43 of us, including me, on the call. I didn't really say a lot during the initial hour. It was a lot of very important people saying very important things to themselves, and a lot of other very important people going, "Oh, yes, that's a very good point." Kind of pointless hour, but it was interesting to kind of take the temperature of the room. And a lot of big things have happened in the kind of TV news cycle this week. The biggest being, the BBC has lost all faith in Doctor Who and are going to, basically, they're going out to tender. They're dumping everybody who was involved in the TV side of the Doctor Who stuff, and they want to start from scratch. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do. But that's kind of sent a little bit of a shockwave through the people I've been working with anyway. And then the other big cancellation for a kind of show like this was Stargate. And what's interesting with the Stargate thing is that the guy who was making it was trying to make a series for Stargate fans, which, by the way, I think is absolutely the right call. If you're going to make Stargate, make it Stargate. Don't try and make it wildly appealing. Like, if you make Stargate for the fans and you make it good, it will have mass appeal. If you make a Stargate for a different crowd, you're going to alienate the Stargate people, and you probably won't find the new people you're looking for anyway. And if you're looking for that new crowd, start with a new project, even if it's Stargate adjacent. And this is kind of where the people I'd never met before, the very important, very, very bigwiggy people, were trying to steer the ship. You know, wouldn't it be great if, you know, Stargate is now going to be delayed probably till 2028 at the earliest. Doctor Who probably won't come back till 2028 at the earliest in TV form. Wouldn't it be great if we could put something out that kind of filled that void, fed that niche? And my idea of a kind of fantasy detective mystery does kind of slide into that void. Think of it as a fantasy NCIS, if you will, or any kind of those detective shows. Now, the idea is not to go fully that way, but a little bit. So let's get into that. So my pitch, which was the second hour of the call, was very much a deeper, season-long, slow burn mystery with an added mystery of the team coming back together, finding their groove again in order to be able to solve this mystery and the kind of missteps made along the way. They don't want that. It's not that they don't want that. That's unfair. That would be a harder thing to get over the line. And this is one of the biggest things that I'm having to learn this time as I'm trying to do this, is there is a game to be played here. And even though I may want to produce A, they want to produce C, so we have to kind of meet somewhere, and let's make A, because that's what I fucking want to make. But you have to do it in such a way that it makes sense to them as well. So there's no point making this show, writing this show in the way that they wanted me to write it. And this was kind of the third part. So they like the pitch. They very much like the pitch. They like the mystery. They like the kind of general idea. They like most of the characters. They're a little bit unsure about the ghost wife, but I kind of said, no, the ghost wife is kind of important to the story. We are going to kind of have to keep them in. And they liked a lot of the world building that I've done, that I've put into it. They like the way magic is going to work, which I can't go into a whole lot of detail here because the way magic works is part of the kind of initial longer running mystery over these first 10 episodes. But what they made perfectly clear is that they do want a mystery of the week, a case to solve that can be solved in an hour. And if we can weave it so they all kind of lead into a bigger mystery, which, you know, for a mystery of the week, they all won't, because that's just going to become incredibly contrived. Some of them will. And I think, you know, the thing is, we can have the mystery of the week to solve, and then possibly at the same time we're solving some of the larger mystery, or putting the pieces together of a larger mystery that we may not understand that is happening. Mix that in with the team recovering from what is going to have been a absolute tragedy just before we kind of jump into this team. There has been a tragedy. There has been a team shakeup. It introduces a lot of kind of interesting elements to the team for the kind of wizard magic sniffer character in particular. Because, again, like I say, magic and how it works and what it does is very important to the plot of this series. So having the wizard have to work through his emotional feelings, and that's all mixed into how magic works in this world, and uncovering certain things about the kind of tragedy that's just happened is going to change how he interacts with the rest of the team. In fact, when we begin, he's technically not part of the team anymore, and he has to be convinced to come back. The other kind of main character, which is an elf detective, is a mix. I described them on the call as very much a mix of Spock from Star Trek, Sherlock Holmes, and who was the other person who I said I was mixing in? I honestly can't remember. But those two kind of covers the kind of basic broad brushstrokes of the detective. Very logical, very cold, very analytical, deeply loyal is the other main trait that kind of needs to come along with those with that character to make her work. And the relationship between the detective and the wizard is the main relationship we're looking at. They said on the call, is this going to be a possible romantic thing? And I've said no. Romance is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking more for a kind of Sherlock Holmes, Watson kind of relationship than any kind of romantic entanglement. I just think that's a more interesting dynamic to explore. And it also leaves it open that, these people can have romantic interludes with other people, to bring in a little bit of a fresh character whenever you need one. So, where was I going with this? I don't know. But yeah, so they want the mystery of the week. So it's gonna be 10 scripts mystery of the week. I've said, okay, what I would like is episode 1 is going to have to be very light case of the week, because there's a lot of stuff we're going to have to introduce, because as the series goes on, if we're going to do a case of the week, I want every single case, I want the audience to be able to put it together themselves, even though we will be introducing elements that do not exist in this world. So one of the pitfalls when you're thinking about a kind of fantasy thing like this is, if I want the audience to be able to get there before or along with the detectives group, in that episode, I'm going to have to introduce the kind of important thing that they need to catch on, but I need to introduce it in such a way that it looks like I'm not trying to introduce it so it's the thing that they catch on to, and then we reveal at the end that this is what you want. That's not the road I want to go down. I want kind of a lot of general ideas to be introduced very early, and then the specifics so people can kind of latch on and go, well, hang on, if they put that through the kind of view of A, then that could make sense. But then, oh my God, what if you put it through the view of column B as well? Then we're getting somewhere. So do I know how to do that in an entertaining way? I do not. But this is what I've said. I said that the first episode is going to have to do a lot with introduce the tragedy, introduce the main characters, possibly minus the wizard on the first episode, but we don't know how that would do. We kind of think all the characters have to be there. My feeling for the first episode is that every script is going to be about an hour long. So in the old days, it would be 45 minutes because you have to deal with the ads. I don't need to worry about that. We're going to get an hour of playtime per episode. I think I'm going to do the kind of classic thing of pilots and first episodes, which is episode 1 and episode 2 are going to be the same story, right? And we're going to introduce a lot of things, and so I've got 2 hours to play with for the kind of first initial slow burn, introduce everybody. And bear in mind, 2 hours is longer than most motion pictures these days, and they manage to tell a complete story, even if it is fantasy. So I think within that first 2 hour stretch, we can, for the first hour, I think, and this is very off the top of my head, just off the phone call, and I haven't written any of this down, But the first hour is going to be the detective and the crew minus the wizard, with the new guy who's the person who needs to have everything explained to, so the audience can pick up on all the things that need to be explained. They're going to be trying to solve a case, and they're probably not going to be able to do it. The wizard is not going to want to come back because of everything that's kind of happened just beforehand, which we'll be hinting at, but will be forced back to help them out, and that's kind of going to put the band back together, albeit not as smooth sailing as they used to be, and then we can move forward that way into a more kind of case of the week, while also introducing more character elements, introducing more of the kind of bigger mystery around it, exploring what magic is and what it does to people in this world, exploring the kind of the positives of magic, the dark sides of magic, and the kind of the creatures that kind of can inhabit the kind of middle ground oozing section of where magic hits reality. Again, I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't want to give too much away, but at this stage anyway. See, that's kind of what we're thinking. And we'll probably do, so what, we're going for 10. So we'll probably do 6 episodes following that kind of format. Maybe do a chunkier one in the middle. But 6 episodes following that format. And, we can have a lot of fun with that, which is one of the reasons why I like the kind of Monster of the Week strategy, because, yes, we're going to have to say this is our look, this is our feel, this is our genre, this is our humor, this is all the kind of stuff that we need to get to people who are watching to say, look, if this is what you enjoy, this is kind of what we can give you. But it also means that moving forward, and again, I'm thinking of like classic episodes of Buffy where they do the one where nobody can talk, and Doctor Who did the same kind of thing, and there was a huge phenomenon in like the early 2000s where everyone had to do a musical episode. And doing the kind of episode of the week idea means you can latch on to these genre-defining, stereotypical, out of normal episodes once we've decided what normal is. And I like that. I like that that's something I can explore, and I will probably explore it earlier than most people would be willing to on a show like this. maybe not episode 3, episode 4 maybe. But I like that, and then we'll end with a kind of bigger case. If there will be a bigger mystery to solve with the smaller mystery, so obviously we're going to end kind of unraveling that. What I have said is, now obviously they said cliffhanger, if you're going to do big case, do a cliffhanger, and I said, look, I don't want to do a cliffhanger for a number of reasons. Like, I know I should want to do a cliffhanger because if we do manage to get this across the line to even the filming stage, we're nowhere near we're still in very early pitch stage. We don't have scripts, we don't have story ideas, we don't have any of that. We're still very much in early pitch phase. So there's a number of hurdles that we have to hit. I know that the deadline they've given me for the first scripts is middle of December. That's kind of my first deadline, but there's a lot of other things to hit after that for this ever to get anywhere where anybody else can see it, other than what's happening in my brain right now. But we're taking those first steps, and I like that. But yes, I said I don't want to do a cliffhanger. One, because I feel that is just wrong for the audience, for the type of show that we're going to do. I know we're going to do Monsters of the Week, but I do want them to feel at the end of every episode, unless we're going to do a cliffhanger 2-parter, but the cliffhanger would be from episode 9 to episode 10, not episode 10 to season 2. I don't mind doing a kind of cliffhanger week-long, and again, we haven't talked about like if it was ever filmed, whether it be out in a box set or week by week or whatever. This is all stuff that I don't particularly need to worry about right now. But yeah, what I said is I don't mind doing a cliffhanger from kind of an episode 9 to an episode 10, but at the end of episode 10, I want people to feel like, okay, they've solved this mystery. Now, does that mean I'm not willing to start to introduce new ideas? Interesting little stories that, we might be able to pick up for a season 2? No. More like a prologue, though, rather than a cliffhanger, right? We're going to end, whatever case we're working on is going to be done, it's going to be solved, but we will leave a few little interesting clues, a few little interesting loose threads they can still be pulled upon for a season 2. And that won't all be in the last episode. That will be kind of running through the entire thing. We'll meet characters who hopefully the audience will find interesting, but we may not resolve their conflicts completely in the first season, and so there's a thread we can pull. The more threads we can leave to pull for season 2, the better. But I don't want to do a kind of more very obvious, oh my god, is character A dead? Find out in season 2. Because then, more likely than not, there will be no season 2. And it's like, we all knew they weren't dead anyway. It was just to try and get you to come back, That's the kind of stuff I don't want to do. And they're happy with that, to kind of stay away from those kind of things. But, yeah, so the future of Project LRK is 10 episodes, 10, probably 8 distinct separate stories. In those episodes with a lot of character development, a lot of fantastical elements also being developed as we go. Everything's going to take place in a single city, at least for the first season. So the city needs to be developed as well as all the kind of side characters, the government structures, royalty, all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of things that need to be worked on to be able to pull this all together and make it work. So there is a lot to do, but I want to go on a side note here. So a lot of TV production, especially from the suits, is done basically in Excel. They don't use Excel anymore, but it's basically spreadsheets. And they will look at numbers, and they will look at facts, and they will look at figures. And they will say, well, all of the popular shows that have come out recently have had this element, and this element, and this element, so make sure yours has that. And I kind of had to point out and say to them, look, that show did not become popular because it had those elements. Those elements that you think have made the show popular now exist because that show made them popular, because that's what that show was about. Trying to tack on all these kind of different elements into a show that's not about anything to do with that, nobody's going to like it. People are going to know you're doing it just to tick boxes, and nobody likes a tick box exercise. So again, I've said, no, look, we are going to offer, I want to pitch it a little bit high. I'm a big fan of NCIS, but the cases of the week in NCIS aren't exactly the most complicated, and they do follow a steady formula to how you're going to solve them. The formulaic approach to solving the crimes is something I do not want this series to be burdened with. I would much rather the kind of solutions to the crimes always feel a little bit natural. And one of the questions I've asked, and I haven't had answered yet, is, can we do an episode where they're trying to solve a crime and they fail? Because in my mind, that is something that should be very likely in this kind of environment. These are the weird, odd, insane crimes given to the best team to try and solve them, sure, but it is the best team that's no longer the best team. It is a team on the rocks that isn't working together very well anymore. You've got new people in the mix. It doesn't make sense to me that they would have a 100% success rate. So I kind of want to be able to, I want failure to be an option, basically. And I've also said, I don't particularly want to have to keep a character alive because they're the main character and they're considered safe. right? It always, what's the one thing most people remember about the Game of Thrones TV show? Sean Bean dies at the end of the first season. It may not even been the end. I honestly can't remember. But, you lose what was one of the main stars, one of the main characters, and it comes as such a shock that they're gone, right? And I kind of want to have that feeling with anybody who is on the team, is they could go at any minute. So when if we do decide to do the very TV thing of, oh my God, we're pretending a character is dead, there's a good chance they actually may be. Now, which again, that comes down a lot to not storytelling, but when you get to the TV production side, you're going to have actors involved. You're going to have contracts. You're going to have people who you are marketing the series around. And if you suddenly get rid of them, you may not be able to come back from that. So this is what I was coming to when I was saying there is a game to be played, right? I still think I'm going to be able to deliver a compelling, young adult, old child show. I'm not going for anything. Well, no, let's not even think of it in those terms. Again, terms and genres and labels have been thrown at me today, and they're all kind of swimming around in my head. And I'm kind of like, no, I don't really want to think of those labels, right? Few people sit down to write a children's book, right? Or a children's story. You write what it is you want to write. And then really it's society as a whole then decides whether it's a kid's thing or it's an adult thing, right? I want to write something that is accessible. So we're probably not going to go for the kind of bloody horror. We're going to go for more whimsy horror. Is that a genre? I feel like it should be. Maybe it's something I'll start. But yeah, we're going for whimsy horror. We're going for, you may want to hide behind the back of your sofa, but not because it's gruesome, but because we've worked our way into your mind and we've convinced you of something that might be absolutely terrible. There will be humor in it. I've kind of said already that there has to be a level of humor for this to work. The group themselves have to be able to joke about some possibly very horrible things that are going on, because again, to me that's how the world works. I cope with horrible things by joking about them, and I like people who do that. So I want to introduce that to the characters as well. But yes, it is no longer a murder mystery series about someone who kills people at Lionel, sets up their murder scenes like Lionel Richie videos. It's now something completely different. Like I say, we don't have a title for it yet. We are referring to it as Project LRK. It is still on the go. We got a lot of thumbs up from the people at the end of the call when we were kind of deciding on, okay, this is what we're going to move forward with. I've had the email follow up from them already saying, yep, okay, well, go ahead, give us a 10 episode arc of this. These are the things we want you to hit. And yeah, now it's kind of just head down, getting on with it. And that's kind of where I am with it. A little bit more of a freeform update on this one. The previous two for Lionel Rich Killer, I've scripted a little bit more, and I will probably go back to the more scripted versions of these going forward, because this is probably incredibly long. It's incredibly rambly. But honestly, with where Project LRK is right now, I think an unscripted, very rambly, all over the place update video is more in tune with the overarching feeling of where the project is right now. So yeah, that's where we are. The call, it was long. It's meant to be 3 hours. It ended up being about 4.5 hour long call. And then I had to do a couple of calls with various people after that just to kind of hammer out some final ideas. But green lights. Green lights is what I was hoping for. I have a final definitive framework of what I need to deliver by December, so I can just get on with it now. And that's great. It gives me something to aim for. I'm very much looking forward to it. The only thing that we're still kind of trying to hammer out the details of in the background is how much I can share and how much I need to keep to myself going forward. We aren't going to a stage yet where videos need to be vetted. If I start to reveal too much, that is a card they can play, where I may have to send every video to them first, and they will decide, well, you could say that, but no, take this bit out. And for now, we're not at that stage. So whatever I ramble on about will end up in the video, however long this one is going to be. And I am going to stop talking now because this video is going to be way too long. But yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know that's where the call was. That's what happened in the call. It was an interesting call. I haven't had to deal with 43 people in a digital call system for a while, and I was very passive for the first hour, but I definitely took control for the remaining time. As soon as I started my pitch, it was my call, and it's my show we're going to make. And if you don't want to make my show, then I'm willing to make compromises. But at the end of the day, if I'm working on something, if it's not my brain or my attitude that you want to bring to this, why am I even here? There's many other people who will write your mediocre show. Let me write my mediocre show, and we'll see how it all goes, right? Possibly not the best attitude to have had, but it seems to have worked this time. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. I have no idea if there's going to be a huge fan noise in the background of this video. I hope not. But I've got a new fan going. My God, does it move so much air. It is absolutely wonderful. I love it. But that's not what this video is about. It's not about my only fan. It is about Project LRK. We're moving forward, and hopefully the moving forward can now be more structured. I got an end goal. I know what it is they want, and I just have to kind of hit it there, get the ball in the hoop or the puck in the basket or whatever sports ball thing you want to do. That's going to do it for me. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all when I see you all. Bye for now.